Welcome to the Bridge the Divide podcast with Erica Turner and Heidi Wheeler, hosts and founders of the group Bridge the Divide Cedarburg. We hope to provide a forum for discussion and action around racial reconciliation. We seek to identify instances of inequality, foster empathy, and educate others to recognize their part in problems and solutions in Ozaukee County and beyond.
Hey there, Bridge the Divide community. Welcome back. It's been a little bit since we've podcasted, so we felt like we owed you something, and we've got a guest here that I think will make it worth your while. We have Rhonda Hill with us today. Hey, Rhonda.
Good morning.
Rhonda was a speaker for us at the beginning of our season this year, and she talked to us about race and faith. And if you didn't make it, lucky you, we might have a little bit that she's going to share with us on the podcast. Yes. So, Rhonda, tell us about yourself.
Well, I am Rhonda Hill. I am, and I do kind of like that question, Tim, because most people's like, "Oh, tell me about yourself." They start off all of your jobs and all that kind of stuff. I really narrowed that out of my life quickly. I'm a mom.
Mom is good.
Of a 6-year-old. That's how I feel. I see myself as a conduit. I like to connect people and connect also people to their passions. And so I try to, live that through the different jobs that I've done and see myself and be in that connector space. I love to travel. And I like to drink tea, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about the tea. Mm-hmm.
And of course, I know we're going to get to a little bit of my racial justice work.
Yes,
but, that's a little bit about me. Now, I do some crocheting, but I'm nowhere near you. Erica does beautiful work. I don't know if she's ever talked about that at all, but she does beautiful work.
It's my happy place.
And mine is still at like K5.
Okay.
Well, that's not even fair. It's probably some K5ers that's out there killing the crochet
and they're like,
game.
Who are you, Rhonda?
Right.
Can you speed it up? That's all right. We can work on that too.
Right.
We can work on that too. Yes. And the way that we connected was through, I think it was a race and faith discussion that you had where you were speaking and somebody invited me and I met you, and then I knew that you were connected through the Lutheran Church, Faith Lutheran Church here in Cedarburg. So we connected that way. So your connections are working, and interfaith, the dinners. How about we start with interfaith and how that came about and what you do.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, interfaith is actually also tied to my race and faith work.
Okay.
Actually, in this way. So I worked for the Greater Milwaukee Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. Long title for 7 years, and it just came to my time to leave. And so during that time while we were there, while I was there, we engaged with interfaith activities. And so it was a prayer breakfast. It's an annual prayer breakfast that the mayor has in Milwaukee. And so I was there, and Tom, the previous executive director, was there. And I went up to him and said, "Hey, Tom, I'm leaving my job here at the Senate, but I really appreciated interfaith. And I just wanted you to know that I appreciated that connection." And he offered me this job. So it was just like that. And and this is, it sounds just like that, but actually I had applied for a fellowship maybe a year previous to this to be able to do some racial justice work, but grounded in interfaith, and create a interfaith way at looking at and talking about racism.
Right.
But I didn't get the fellowship.
Okay.
But I wanted more interfaith exposure, so I put that out there, and God answered, and didn't even think I was going to get that job. So that's how interfaith was tied into my racial justice work, because I wanted that interfaith experience, and just simply telling Tom, thank you. He offered me a job. So I am currently the program director for Interfaith Dialogue. We have a program called Amazing Faith Dinner Dialogue. Another long term where people get together in each other's homes 8 to 12 people usually across faiths or religious ideas, have a vegetarian meal, no alcohol. A moderator is there to help facilitate these conversations, which are really grounded in more like themes. Religious themes could be like faith, forgiveness, love,
charity,
evil, these ideas that people have around those things. But we also do larger group gatherings. We did a group gathering at the Rep Theater after a play, and that was like 400 people.
Oh my.
I think that was the largest one we've done to date. And so that work is definitely near to me, and again, a true a part of who I am, and keep placing me in that connector position where I'm able to still connect other people to other ideologies, help people get, I think, more grounded in their own ideas about faith and spirituality.
And just by talking about it, because I've been to two, I think I've been to, and it really, first, I feel like it solidifies community. It feels like such a community gathering. You don't necessarily know anybody in the room, but that you can ask questions, you can, give your opinions about things, and this is not some hot ugly debate that's on TV. It's a conversation. You're having dinner. It's really I think it was a very good connection with the people that I had there, and then most of us have a connection after that dinner. So I really liked it. I enjoyed it.
That's cool. I always tell people, it takes us deeper than how was the weather or your favorite sports team. It just launches you right into deep, more philosophical conversation, which I think a lot of people are thirsty for that.
Right. We're and you have the moderator, so people. It's guided, so it's not like you have to go there and go, now what am I going to talk about deep today? It's there and a guided conversation. I liked it.
Yeah, we have 30 question cards, so you only get to answer your question. So I think that does help a lot. It's not you have to be the resident theologian.
Right.
Nobody is. That's Nobody has to be. It's your life, your experience, and how you want to share it.
So how would somebody get in contact if they wanted to be a part of an amazing faith dinner?
Well, you can go to our website, interfaithconference.org. You can also email me, Rhonda, RHONDAH, at interfaithconference.org. So...
And I will put those on the show notes too. So
absolutely, we're always looking for more people to be engaged, more non-Christians.
Yes, that is the
to be engaged.
Yes, right. That's the thing. If we're working on trying to learn about different things and each other, when you are the majority, it's a little hard to learn about the other.
Yeah, and I mean, it's again like racism, when wanting to have these dialogues and conversations across race, it's oftentimes can be more difficult to get those that have been traditionally oppressed to be engaged in those conversations. And it's the same way here with Christianity being the dominant religion here in the United States. Then those people who belong to other faith groups don't always know or feel like their voice is really welcomed or their perspective. And that's one thing I really do love and appreciate about Interfaith, because we're saying everybody is your opinion, from atheist to the most devout, whatever. We want to hear your perspective. So we're celebrating our 49th annual luncheon this December 5th. And the theme is Go Beyond, Coexist. So it's not that we just want to coexist together. We really want to celebrate everybody. We're not just trying to tolerate you. We want to see you and let you know we see you. We value you. What you bring, we need, and we want to know more about it. And so I'm excited about where we're going and what we're hoping to do throughout the greater Milwaukee area. So check us out.
Right. Okay, so I'll keep that. I'll have that on the show number. Interfaith is in there. Yeah. And now slide us over to Race and Faith.
Race and Faith, yes. And so, like I said before, my interfaith work really, and getting engaged with that, came out of my race and faith work, already wanting to expand race and faith and my knowledge base around faith perspectives as it relates to racism. So race and faith came basically from me spending a couple years at the YWCA in Milwaukee. They have a course called Unlearning Racism. Another plug there for YWCA and that course, Unlearning Racism. Check it out if you have the time. But doing that, I worked also at my other job, the Greater Milwaukee Synod. And so as part of my time with the YWCA, we would cycle in a couple folks from the Lutheran Church into those courses. And so just over time, after doing that and being there and you know, still being inside of my faith community, I felt after wrapping up there that it was still space needed to be created for people of faith to really get engaged into these conversations about racism. So I wanted to allow faith to have a center seat.
Okay.
So oftentimes when we do have conversations about racism or we're doing some anti-racism talks, faith and people's belief systems aren't always really engaged in that. And I really believe that we have to get at the heart of people's beliefs because racism isn't logical, right? We approach it from, you know, a more logical, higher thinking exercise. And while I'm not against, you know, educating and challenging people to, you know, think deeper about some things, really we know people get in really engaged in this emotional space, and that's not rational. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
It's not always rational. People's belief systems aren't always rational.
Right.
And I think even in that, using people's belief systems, we can either challenge them to go deeper and change, or also challenge them to rise up and really be advocates and be a part of the change that really needs to happen in the world.
Right. So silence is not acting. I mean, well, silence is an action. That action is saying that I may not agree, but I'm not willing to step in. So, yeah.
And I think knowing people's faith perspectives and how their faith is engaging them in racism, whether their faith is encouraging racist behaviors or their faith is giving them power to fight racist behaviors. I think getting at that with people, I think that can charge them up in a different way. Because really our work is about allowing people to bring their full selves to the conversation about racism. Another thing I've also noticed with working with people of faith, primarily being working with Christians, is that it becomes easier for people to see in the outside world how racism is happening. Like you could mention like, oh, don't drink at that water fountain because you're black, and people can see that as not right. Or you may think about what's happening with immigration. You may feel some conviction, but they can't really see how their own religious institutions are perpetuating racism.
Right.
And so I take some time with my work and try to really help people say, okay, now let's turn around and look inward and see how are the positions we hold and have power over are actually creating some of the same racial prejudices that we don't like.
Right. All righty. All right, Rhonda, we're going to have to go over to a break, and we'll be back shortly talking about some myths and realities that Rhonda can tell us about. We are back with Rhonda Hill. Rhonda was our guest for Bridge the Divide at the beginning of this season. And one of the things that we talked about during that session was about myths versus reality. So either tied with race alone or race and faith, you were trying to get us to identify myths that we've heard. And of course, you hear it over and over and over again. Then you think it's actually true and it's historical when it's really just a myth. Can you touch on some of that again?
Yeah. I started with this whole thought around basically myth making and what we do with that. Actually, that came from a conference I went to a couple years ago where a presenter talked about myth making and whitewashing. And I really grabbed onto that and started doing a research project around that for my last year in seminary. I graduated last year from the Lutheran School of Theology in Chicago.
All right.
We were graduating, okay. But that work really became interesting to me, and I wanted to really look more into what does that look like? What does the myth making look like? What does the whitewashing look like? And what is that doing to our collective memory? And so going through that was more specific to, I was looking at how was that happening in the Lutheran Church specifically, but it is a way that I like to talk about it with all groups. So even when I talked earlier this year in Madison to the group there, which is a mental health facility, it was a mental health organization. They were investigating racism in the workplace. So it's what myths are at work here. And really these myths help keep white supremacy going. And that's the core of it, as we talked about when I was with you. It's like, how are these myths or the stories that we're telling about ourselves or other people, how are they actually helping to keep whiteness in place, which therefore keeps white supremacy in place? And so really doing that work is, I think that's kind of at the core of what we really need to do, is because it's so easy. We hear, like you said, we hear these stories over and over again, or we tell these things to ourselves over and over again, of either about ourselves or other people. And I think that's the whitewashing of it, right? We put a white gloss over it all and not really thinking about, well, what's really behind that. So we try to get at that. And over time, then that adds to our collective memory.
And we've had a lot of time, we're the people that we're working with. We don't have a lot of young people that are coming. We'd love to have more coming, but we are middle-aged people. We are seniors over 60 and 70. So it feels basically impossible when you try to separate a myth from the truth to have me believe that. I've been believing this for 50 years. What do you mean it's not true? And who are you to tell me it's not true? You must have an agenda. And that's why you're telling this to me, because my mom, my grandma, all of my family has said this. All of my history books have said this. My founding fathers have said this. It must be true. And how do you get... my new word this year is social capital. How do you have the social capital to have people believe you when you're trying to get them to separate the myth from the reality?
Well, I'm going to say this tactfully.
Oh, that's good.
I'm interested more so right now in creating a collective memory that's empowering for Black people.
Yes.
More so than trying to convince non-Black people. Because we've been done a tremendous disservice in what we've been taught and able to know about ourselves. So, for example, let's take Rosa Parks, the story of her. Most times, Rosa Parks is depicted as a senior citizen who was on the bus. She wasn't a senior citizen.
She was not.
But most times that's how she's depicted, right? That's for a reason. That's a myth. Now, why? So then let's unpack that. I would like to try to, that's the kind of things what I see as a long-standing myth that's been out there that we've all bought into. Why did that ever happen? So then that's where you do the critical thinking around it. And then saying like, look, we as Black and brown people, we have valuable stories that are important to the landscape of this country. We have to take back our own stories. And that's, to me, that's undoing the whitewashing. When we take back our stories and we tell them correctly and we believe them, because we're the ones who we need to believe them, because they will empower us. Others may become frightened by that. That's on the back end. We can deal with that later. But the front end, let's tell a more honest story. Again, creating those collective memories for ourselves and our children that then help us forecast a better future and the way we tell our stories in the future, because right now it's you like social capital. I like that too, but I also have glommed onto the word of when people say the white gaze. Because I feel like right now the white gaze is so strong on us. Well, it has been forever. It's like we have to get beyond that.
Yeah.
And I think that comes with how we begin to tell our stories and create our stories and put them tell them into the future for our children.
Right.
know?
And focusing.
Was that tactful enough?
It was. I think that was lovely. See? But focusing on when you're a black person, because here I am. If you're a black person that's in mostly white spaces, being able to focus on your history, your story, that's not the pity me story because I've had this and this has gone wrong and you should feel sorry for me.
Right.
But it's taken me to be middle-aged to see what I'm missing in the community of other black people, that we can have. Our conversations are different. Our storytelling, our accomplishments, it's a different kind of vibe. And I've also found that in is it Not Your Mama's Tea?
Yes.
Going to that function and being around people that are in the same place, not always being the only standing out in a place,
sure,
but having a community of people that look like you, that work like you, that have grown up like you, and to be in that community space was really empowering. And so tell me about how you came to start Not Your Mama's Tea.
Right. Well, Not Your Mama's Tea is definitely a love child. Again, I like to travel. I am a tea drinker, and so whenever I travel, I would go to different tea houses. And so maybe 5 years ago now, I was at a tea house in Arizona. And in Arizona, as soon as you go through the doors, Carefree, Arizona, you go through the door, there's a queen mother cut out there to greet you.
Okay.
Very English in all of its glory, okay? The ladies sitting around the table, they got their little teapots, and they got on the little hats, and I was like, oh, this is so cute. I want to join in. So I got my little seat, and I found out that there was hats in a trunk around the corner. So everybody, if you want to go in there, get your hat, and you have your whole little tea time. And it was lovely, okay? And I obviously I have appreciation for other cultures if I'm a part of Interfaith.
Right.
But I also said, you know what? I want to do and create something like this that's reflective of my own culture. And so that's how Not Your Mama's Tea came about. So it is from, traveling and seeing and getting the grasp of English tea time that I wanted to do more of a hip hop, not so high tea. We really don't have high tea.
Well, and some of that tea, I was like, oh, this is grown up tea.
Oh, no, it is grown up tea now.
I'm going to have the other tea over there. I need the baby tea.
I do have my tea teenies, which is a little tea and a little liquor, but it is very grown up in tea because I try to. I'm a tea drinker, so it's not just like, oh, we're gonna have some
bag
lifting.
of tea. No,
we're gonna have some. We're gonna drink some quality teas,
right? In the porcelain, in all the different teacups that were just beautiful. It was very nice.
Yeah, so I do have some of that because tea also that's what makes tea different from coffee. I tell people tea is an experience, and so tea lovers and people they want that whole experience and that time to steep the tea, sip the tea, and just kind of relax. You know?
Right. And I went with one of my daughters, so that experience of bonding and going out and having tea in our beautiful cups and the teas that were steeping, you had the descriptions of what they were, and so we're smelling them and talking about it. Was just a really nice experience.
Glad I like hearing that.
Yes, I didn't get to go to the Colorado tea.
Oh yeah,
that was in a for real fancy tea house.
My tea and travel. I'm hoping to grow that more, but yes, we did a local tea shop there, Whittier Tea Shop, which is owned by an Ethiopian woman. That was more of like the hip hop high tea. We had the vibes, the laid back R&B music and tea taste and all, but it was more casual, of course, more to the Not Your Mama's Tea style. And then we went to Boulder to the Dushanbe Tea House, which was very much so high tea time.
Okay.
But it was beautiful, gorgeous. We loved that too. I mean, I can get down with the fancy too. I can kick up my heels too. I like both. I want the option though. I want the option to do both.
Right.
And just in the tea
not
culture,
excluding anybody, saying, well, you can't be here because you're not
highbrow.
Right.
No. And that tea is meant to be intergenerational and cross races.
Yes.
With my Not Your Mama's Tea, definitely. It just celebrates hip hop, R&B, Black culture.
All righty. Okay, let's go for another break, and we're gonna come back and talk some more about your travels. Erica and Rhonda are going to wrap up this segment with some talk about travel. We've already heard Rhonda tell us about what a travel bug she caught. And I do know that you've done some traveling in Alabama and in Ghana. Tell us about your traveling. What you up to?
I'm going to link this travel experience to the conversation about collective memory.
Okay.
Right? And trying to create a more honest storytelling for myself and hopefully for my son. So this year, kind of unbeknownst to me, I think it was probably planned out there in the larger spirit world for me to have this journey. So earlier this year, I went to Alabama.
Okay.
I went for a conference, but while we were there, we did Selma, Birmingham, Montgomery, and historical places for the civil rights movement. And also looking at some of the atrocities that happened to those who were enslaved, and then after enslavement with the lynchings and the other terror that happened to us, right? So this conference, a religious conference, so I was there getting my church on, but also learning about just history, right? Our lived history, lived history for some of our folks that's still around. So the beautiful thing about this trip there was that I did this trip with some seminarians, as well as it was seniors there. So one of our first nights of worship, we were in the 16th Street Baptist Church, and we worshiped there, and we opened up service singing the national anthem. I'm just bawling.
I bet.
The black national anthem. Okay, let me clear that up. The black, I'm just bawling. And then we get to that last line, everybody just raised the black fist, and just, I'm like...
Just being there. I mean, we've all heard about it, and and you cry when you see stories about it, but to be there
and having that worship experience on top of learning, about the bombings and hearing that. So that kind of kicked off this experience. And then we went to Selma. We did the voting rights museum there. I learned so much there. Our tour guide was 11 years old, and he showed us how they were locked up, at 11 years old. He was locked up. And just talking about that whole time experience. And we met another woman there who was 11 years old doing the civil rights, who does tours.
Okay.
That I've already booked her for when we go back. To do that story again. And that was just beautiful. A beautiful thing for me is like listening to the stories, being in these memorable places, and standing there next to me was an older black person, and looking at their face that's what moved me. And I said, okay, God, I hear you. I need to add this to my racial justice work. Which topped it off is going to Montgomery, going to the Lynching Museum, going to the Museum from Slavery to Mass Incarceration, and that people were walking out of that slavery to mass incarceration, just boo-hooing. One of the chilling things is once you come through, they start with slavery and what it looks like in Alabama and specifically Montgomery. And so then it's like holograms of those who were enslaved popping up and telling their stories.
Oh, wow.
Chilling.
Oh, man.
It's like... Oh man. And then we go over to the memorial with the lynching memorial. And again, just after that, crying, of course, but also feeling like amazing feelings of the resilience. And like, they try to squash us. Coming and going so many ways. And to know we still made it through, not only just made it through, it's thriving in some ways.
I think that's something we've talked about is missing in schools, not just the facts of history, because the history is glossed over, but when you talk about the people who are descendants of slaves, from slavery till all their descendants fighting. Yes, these things happen, but they fought all the way, continually, fighting, always fighting it.
Always fighting. It's fighting today, and that's a whole nother topic. How that fighting makes you tired. But also going to Ghana. I feel like Ghana completed the story for me without try not to get too start crying and not be inaudible here.
Right.
But Ghana completed the story for me. Going there, trip I've always wanted to do. So I turned 40 this year. Woo, woo.
Yes,
and I
40.
knew for my 40th, that was where I needed to go. I've been wanting to do this trip for years.
Right.
Okay, over 10 years. But I knew I'm coming 40, I have to do this. And then they did the celebrating the year of return all year long.
Oh, that's right. It was the 400th.
Starting earlier this year, Ghana's been doing activities since January.
Right.
Coined the year of return, 400 years commemorating resilience. And so planning with my friends, I went with a young lady. We just looked at the calendar and knew that this week in August was the week to go, because that was when they did the August 20th.
Right. That was the actual.
Yes. So we had this big commemoration. It's called Jamestown to Jamestown. And NAACP had a plane load of folks that came over from Jamestown, Virginia to Jamestown, Accra. And it was just massive. It was so soul healing. It was just beautiful. Going through that ceremony, because a couple of days before that we had went through the castles where they had enslaved and the place where they had to take their last bath before being branded and sold off. And so being in Ghana and hearing the stories there of what our people had to endure before they even came to the States, then to only come to the States and endure, I just said, Lord, we are some awesome
really
people. And that is the story that we need to tell. Again, that how our collective memory and what we're being told to think about people who were enslaved. It's like they've been made to look like the evil people.
Right.
There's something wrong with you because that happened to you.
Right.
Versus how strong, resilient,
Still
creative.
Out of all of that
ugly.
Yep.
You forget making lemonade out of lemons. We taking quilts. We taking old work clothes.
Yep.
And making beautiful quilts.
Yep.
Okay, it's just that God likeness in us, that creative piece of God that I feel God specifically gave to us because He knew we was gonna need it.
Yeah.
And that keeps showing up and showing out for us and taking us over so many valleys.
Right.
Up to mountaintops, really.
And you did it, and you felt all this, and now you're going to share it with those of us who weren't able to go.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And who still have not been to Ghana or Benin or any of the places that I want to go. So you're not going to take us there, but you are going to take us to Alabama.
Hopefully Ghana will be one of those.
Okay.
That's definitely on my list.
Make sure I'm on
absolutely. So in spring next year, March 2020, we're doing a trip I'm calling the Faith and Freedom Tour, where we are taking an intergenerational trip, bus trip from Milwaukee to Birmingham, Selma, and Montgomery. Again, visiting those historic sites, having the conversations we need to have. Again, the myths, white supremacy, and looking at the collective story and hopefully creating a more honest, more truer collective memory that we can begin to maybe write
with the young and the old, so that they can those conversations look different than if we're all 40-year-olds talking together, 18-year-olds talking together. To have that cross-generational conversation,
it has to be huge. It has to be intergenerational to me, because it's more young people being enlisted by white supremacists these days, and I think that's because we're not telling a true story. We're not we're not engaging the young people in real conversations about racism and about the history of racism in the United States and globally. What's been happening, how colonization's been happening, imperialism is still happening today. Those are some real honest conversations that we need to have, and I think when we take these kinds of trips together, this is time nobody can escape. We're all going to be on that bus together. We will have
boohooing and crying together.
Hopefully we'll have some exercises. I want to do reflections each night to really help people think about what they experienced, what they saw, what they heard, and give some introverts some time to be to themselves, to process
all of that. I can't imagine even the pictures that I've seen of the Lynching Museum. That's not, what's the proper name for the Lynching Museum?
The National Memorial for Peace and Justice.
Thank you.
Yes.
But just seeing the pictures of it,
Yes.
so much emotion and so much just like a real deep, visceral reaction to seeing that. I can't imagine when I see it in person.
Right.
What I'm gonna need some time.
Right. So
I'm
this
not
trip,
talking about it, just feeling it.
This trip is March 14th through the 20th. And if we have enough people, we'll do it again following that March
Right.
21st through the 27th.
Open to anybody.
Open
You
to
don't have to
anybody.
be a part of any particular group or church, or everybody is
right.
welcome to come.
If you're looking to really explore racism in the States and see how your faith is a part of that and can help you through it and help us into our next chapter, this trip is for you. And if you can't come on this trip, you can always sponsor
Right.
a young adult or a senior citizen.
Right.
Again, because I want both generations there
Right.
to really get at some of these things. I think, again, that's what I think was so helpful for me. I'm there. I'm seeing elders who I know they lived this time period.
Right.
Just being there, I didn't even have to ask them a lot of questions. They talk.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But that was what really just kind of opened my heart even more so to say, like, you know, we need to do this. That was transformative for me, so much so that I'm offering this experience.
Right.
And so that's the thing. I'm hoping that after this experience, some more transformation will happen.
Right
now, we're reading some books. We're reading The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead.
Okay.
Next book we're reading is Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm encouraging people who are coming, start with those two books, and we'll try to meet up. We had one book meet up already. We'll have another one.
Okay. Tell me where they can go to get more information, your website, get more information and sign up or say I'm interested.
You can contact me at raceandfaith.org. You can email me, Rhonda, RHONDA, at raceandfaith.org. We're on Facebook, Race and Faith. You can like us, please do, on Facebook. You can find me and like me on, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn, Rhonda Hill. And you can call me.
Right.
You can call me. You can text me. Yes, because I know people have questions, and I'm good with that. My number is 414-736-0523. I would definitely, people who are really seeking and on a genuine quest for racial justice. I want to talk to you, but also I want to encourage you to be a part of this trip next spring.
Right. And we are, I do want to mention too that we're traveling by bus.
Yes.
So I think that's another way of building community and building relationships, because it's not just we're going to be inside of a museum together. We're going to be on this bus ride together and giving time to talk and be in community. And I think that's
bring your snacks.
Right. Make sure you have snacks. Rhonda is not providing snacks for you.
Bring your hydrations.
This is great. And I'll have all of those links in the show notes. We have a flyer that we've posted up a few times. So if you're on the Bridge the Divide Facebook page or on the Instagram, we've got some flyers up there too. Encourage some people to join. Rhonda, thank you so very much. I think this is going to be one that you're going to have to listen to a few times, Bridge Community, and get all the information out of it. And until the next time, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening. We welcome your feedback, suggestions, and any program ideas. Spoken word artist propaganda states, we need to consider the waters we swim in. Maybe it's not toxic to me, but it's toxic to my neighbor. And if it's toxic to my neighbor, it's probably toxic to me too. Let's breathe better water. Contact us on our website at www.bridgethedivide.life. You can email us info@bridgethedivide.life. or reach us on social media. Facebook is Bridge the Divide Community, and on Instagram, it's Bridge the Divide Podcast.